A lot of pleasure, to have you, Sateesh, today for our Sunday talk. And yeah, so we'll just quickly get started on this. Right. So, Satish, I would like to, and I think our audience should also like to learn and understand directly from you, your journey and what you have been into. What are you looking up to? And yeah, we'll take it from there.
Okay. Thanks for such a nice introduction. And yes, it has been quite a ride. I've been through two recessions, you could say. Started my career in the bottommost one in 2007-8, and then now we are also just getting out of it, and we are pretty unsure about we are actually getting out or getting into. So, thanks for such a nice introduction about myself. I don't know. Let's see. Where do we start? I have been into data science and machine learning industry for, you could say, best part of my career, most of it. Although you introduced me as starting my career in software industry, it's just that the company is actually called Global Analytics at that time, which is now a gain credit in Chennai. They just rebranded. Just by the name, you could see that they used to have the whole analytics consulting business at that time. And then I was part of a team working in short-term lending business. I worked there as a Python developer, you could say. It's not a full software development in Java or CPP kind of a thing. So I only know Python and related stuff from the beginning itself. And quickly I shifted to a well-known company, pretty much everyone knows nowadays in the industry is Tiger Analytics. I'm one of those first four employees, you could say there, if you leave the admin part out. I've stayed there for about 4 years. I've seen the, um, you could say, growth of a company from shared offices to having own office that could accommodate close to 500 to 1,000 people, and then shifting through multiple phases and going through all phases of learning, both admin side and also technical side, you could say. Because back when we started this data science consulting company, Tiger Analytics, there were not as many resources as there are today in YouTube, say, for example. If I needed to learn about a linear regression, I go read the blogs, visit a library, or just talk to our co-founder Pradeep Bilipalli, you might know very well. So we used to run behind him every week one day, and then ask him to just explain us what that model is and how you fit a model, what's the function, how do you optimize it, what's the cost function, and all those things. And then initial few things were learned completely from him. And there's one more person called Pamandeep Singh Gujral. If you actually Google him, you might even see his name come up on the poker, because he's one of those legends, you can say, in poker in India. Pamandeep and Ramandeep are the pretty
Oh,
big
is
names.
it?
Yeah.
Amandeep.
He's no longer into poker now. He moved on at the
Okay,
time that I jumped into. But Ramandeep, I think, still manages casino in Goa, if I'm not mistaken.
got it. Got
He
it.
taught us a lot about, you could say, the modern neural network modelings, because at that time it was completely theoretical and more on the books and very less in the actual development. So he taught us a lot about how do you think along the lines of positron model and how it connect back to something like support vector machines and move on from there. So I learned a lot in those 5 years. And then, of course, as the life goes on, you have to keep move on. The life changes, right? So I got married and I said, let me think about where would be my good time to stay back. Even after I got married, I stayed in Chennai for a year. I had my first kid and said, being away from home gives you a very less support to take care of family and career both, right? So I was looking to shift to Hyderabad. At the time, Tiger was not present anywhere outside Chennai. So I looked out for an opportunity and I got into Salesforce. Back in 2017, November, I joined, and ever since I'm working at Salesforce. This Second phase of journey in data science taught me a lot more things. Like by then, I moved to Hyderabad. It's a boom of Coursera and all sorts of online
Yeah.
courses, and none of things happening in YouTube itself. I mean, when I was at Tiger, I used to follow quite a lot of courses from Stanford and MIT, but then every other university, all the big ones, started putting out their courses in public space. Like say IIT Madras has courses, and MIT OpenCourseWare, Stanford or Georgia Tech or you name it. Like every university started putting out there. So it's like all of a sudden, you could say it's a knowledge boom, just like how you look at the market, right? Like .com boom or the dips and all. It's all of a sudden knowledge boom. Everyone started putting certification courses and all. But if you looked at my profile, you would probably see zero of them
Yeah.
because I learned through people and through reading and through experiences. So I never really had specific interest in those. Didn't go through. Actually, I have seen courses. It's not like I haven't. Just that I started in the direction of going through the experience to learn. So this set of things were not my you could say cup of tea to go complete the exam, get a certificate, put it in your LinkedIn. But I'd rather spend more time on working on a real project and things like that.
Mhm.
So this has been my journey. In my 13 years of experience, I would say 11 years is into data science and machine learning. In fact, I started in this domain when the idea of data science itself was very new. Twitter used to coin those terms, data science type 1, type 2. Basically, someone who's strong in statistics and little knowledge in engineering. And there is another one, type 2, is more strong in engineering and very little knowledge in statistics. But now it just became like a full stack developer,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? You need to be expert at everything.
Right.
So this has been my journey of 13 years at a very high level. I worked across many industries, being part of consulting company for 5 years. We had a chance to go through several phases of those clients and customers' growth. So yeah, I've had a chance to work across many clients.
Got
A
it.
little bit about me.
Great, great. I think it has been a very inspiring journey, and hats off to what you have achieved and what you have, seen through last 10, 15 years, right? So what made you, you mentioned that you were into software engineering earlier, primarily around you were doing development in Python. So what made you move from that into data? And that too, that was back in 2010 or something, right? So that was already, it was a very early market for data and AI. People were not even thinking about in that direction.
So back in 2008, 9, or maybe even before that, like I joined in civil engineering just because that's how our education system works, right? You get a rank, you just get thrown into the place that there is an option to. If I had a chance, I probably would have chosen computer science or maybe I don't know, electrical or ECE. But that's not the case. But from the very early stages of my BTech itself, I always wanted to be into analytics domain. I wouldn't per se call it as a data science because there's no such thing as data science at that time. And for better or worse, the recession happened at our graduation time, and it was actually one of the best time to be graduating from IIT Madras because Pan IIT Meet, which happens once in a while, was happening in 2009 in IIT Madras, which is getting together all the big shots of IITM alumni. Think about ICICI Bank head or Matrimony founder, all those big shots.
Okay.
Back in those days, these companies like Lehman Brothers, Schlumberger, all those used to hire from IIT Madras. All the big shots were there. They were coming to meet in IIT Madras, and that was also the golden jubilee year for IIT Madras. So we had lots of opportunities that we could grab onto, but the market was not ready. A
Yeah.
simple example that I could give you is like, say, Microsoft every year comes to IIT Madras, picks about 5 to 10 people. That year, they came for placements. They picked two guys and they gave the offers to those two who were going for MS. Now you can imagine the market, right? If
Yeah.
company like Microsoft is doing that, There's very little to no chance at that time. So I didn't get placed in campus.
Do you?
So
Sorry, please go ahead. Go ahead.
so I worked in IIT Madras itself with civil engineering department on one of the very interesting projects. Actually, it's live in Chennai for quite some time. Is how do you identify the time between two traffic junctions or source to destination? Of course, you could see Google Maps and all, but they work on a different technology versus what we were doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's this team of professors and collaborated with a IT company, and we set up a lab there. And I used to actually look after one of the cameras set up in the traffic, check the lead times and lag times of every vehicle, estimate the traffic density, average speed, and all, and then give the information in real-time boards on the traffic signal. A digital board would display there. At every junction, you would have two or three routes, and every route you take, how much time it takes to the next junction. Google Maps and all is nice, but when you're driving, you don't really look at the maps, right? But this kind of boards really help. If there is a congestion ahead, and people
Mm-hmm.
automatically divert to another route. A police doesn't need to sit in the junction and move the traffic. So that was the interesting idea of the project. So worked there, and at the time, I had a nice relation with our professors, and he recommended me to this company called Tiger Analytics because the founder or co-founder of Tiger Analytics, Pradeep Gulipalli, and our professor were batchmates at MS University, Texas A&M in US. So that's how I got introduced to the company and then started my journey into this.
Got it. So when you look backwards, that's the dots basically connected, and it kind of worked for you, right? In some ways.
I had interest and things fell in place.
Yeah.
I could actually recommend you one YouTube video on how much luck plays in your success. It's actually more than 95% statistically proven.
Please do share. This sounds interesting.
Think about it, right? Like, I'll just give you a simple example. It might sound bit too philosophical or crazy, but think about it. You can't choose your parents, but luck can choose you, right? Like being born to Ambani is guaranteed success,
Yeah, that's true.
but but the other way around is not true, right? But that if you take those things into consideration, I mean that's a very extreme example, but another example could be being born in US gives you an average higher success rate compared to being born in South Africa or any of those African poor countries.
Correct, 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 correct.
So take all those examples, put together the numbers, you would get the probability estimation. It's 95% or more is what luck plays a role in your success.
Time at right place, that is very
Yeah,
important.
so I also attribute it to some of the things that conspired towards my path, but I also put in an effort. It's both ways. And I
Almost
still say that 95% is true.
grabbing the opportunity is also very important, right? But so that's also plays an equally important role. Otherwise, the opportunities, if that is there and you are not kind of leveraging it, then again you're gonna lose in a longer run.
Agree.
Yeah. So tell me one thing, Sateesh. In 2008 recession, when you graduated from IIT Chennai, and the current landscape, do you see any similarity between these two, time periods?
I would actually say it's the other way around. Rather than similarities in terms of market, back in 2008, people were not ready for the slump, and not these many big companies were there. There were always big companies. I'm not saying there were not there. These many big companies were not there. And if you just count those based on my knowledge at that time of college, there were very few. Take all those banking companies in US, not many in India though, like Lehman Brothers, Schlumberger is a oil company, and then Goldman Sachs, Bank of America, Shell. These were the big companies that used to come to IIT Madras at that time.
Mm.
And not a lot of these were not ready for something like a recession. But now, if you looked at times during COVID, everyone knows that the market was bad at that time, but every big company was hiring crazily. They were not doing the thing of that I was talking about Microsoft case in 2009, right?
Right, right. Initial few months was a bit crazy of COVID, when it started in 2020 March, I guess.
That's
Initial 3 4
uncertainty
months
because nobody
was
was actually working on
uncertainty.
it.
Right, right. But after that, I think it just boomed like anything, and I think that was the biggest, what do you call it? Biggest bull market in terms of hiring and mostly around
Yeah.
tech talent. That was crazy. Yeah,
Yes. And soon after that, what followed is what's called a great resignation
yeah.
era. But that didn't last.
Hmm.
Ukraine war and these things put things back in place. So the thing is, going back to your original question, I would say the people were more ready for the expected downturn around this time compared to when it was in 2008. And people have figured out now, like every 10 to 12 years, there is an expected dip followed by a rise. So just at the curve of the dip, people would be cautious, and as it hits lower and lower and they start seeing the bottoming out, I mean, of course, now lots of things are there for every single person to model the behavior. I mean, if you can predict weather so accurately, then it's not going to be as difficult as that to predict the market.
You're
Of
right.
course, you can never be 100% accurate, but you would get the trends right. And people were ready, and then that's why we don't see that severe hit this time. But the worst part of this one is that this behavior is going to last longer than what it happened in 2009.
Hmm. Yeah.
2 years, market was up and ready and running, but now, if you are not ready to fall completely to the bottom, you would be sliding, 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 sliding. You don't know when you are going to hit the bottom.
Hmm.
That's what we are seeing in the market now. Like one simple example that I can talk about in the job market in current industry is like, back in 2009, when there was an opening for a job, probably you would see 500 to 1,000 applications. That was crazy at the time.
Yeah.
Now, just to give you a comparison to that, now if there is an opening, you could open up LinkedIn and see any of those very interesting job applications. It would have been posted like 6 hours ago, and you would already see 500,000 applications.
Right.
Now, when would companies really start shortlisting, right? That's not within 6 hours. They'd probably, if they're in a very hurry, they'll probably take 2 to 3 days. If they are not in a hurry, like they have a month and a half time, they would take a week. Now, in a
Correct.
week, you can imagine the number of applications that come in, and that gives you the sample of people that are out there for every opportunity that comes along. So this recession is not as bad. At the same time, not gonna be over very soon. It will take some time. So you don't know
I think
how things
maybe
move.
I also sometimes I also look at it, more as a market correction as well. So things have grown, and the growth was not very sustainable. It was an haywire growth that happened, and I think it is also important, uh, more of a reality check for the entire ecosystem. The kind of fundraising that was happening, kind of money that was flowing.
Let me ask you this question. That's perfectly right way to put it. But since when you started following the market, um, what is the time period that you put in this exact statement you made? Is it last 3 years, 5 years?
So if I look at a bigger picture, maybe last over the last 3 years, I would say, not even 5 years.
So that is
Yeah,
what we
just
call in
more of
data domain
perspective,
as a
right?
local maxima.
Yeah,
It's local maxima.
right. So that
I
is.
mean, it happened, but if you look at the longer horizon, like I was talking about 10 to 12 years horizon, right? It was growing. It
Mhm.
was growing like you mentioned, but it has to fall at some point. Market corrections do happen. Corrections and dips are two different aspects. So you grow too fast, you correct too fast, like at 20%, you correct by, I don't know, maybe 5%, 10%, and then you grow again. But once in a while, what happens is that you grow 20%, you almost fall 17%, or
Mhm.
even below 20% also. So
Right, right.
those
That's not a
big
correction
dips
actually.
happen on a longer horizon.
Mhm. Correct, correct.
So that I don't know. I mean, sometimes I feel like it happened in COVID because if you looked at the market, stock market, or any of those indices, whether you look at economic indices of the GDP numbers or stock markets, it did hit that bottom, but people were not sure if it hit because of the market or because of the outlier, you could say.
Right.
COVID was an outlier, right?
Right. But from the way I look at it is, it's mostly, I'm not talking about enterprises, because even if you look at it right now, the market is really outperforming. Right. So market is
Yes.
outperforming, but if you look at the job market or overall, the startup ecosystem, the fundraise ecosystem, so these two are actually not aligning, right? So there is a huge
Yes.
mismatch in terms of
Yeah,
how
that
market is
correction needs to
performing.
happen and it will happen.
Exactly right.
So there's a lot more in front. That, like I was saying, right? Drag is not good. Fall is better.
Exactly right. And also, so when I say correction, it's primarily from the perspective of the startups. Because if you look at, how fundraising has been happening for last few years, there is actually no, objective or no goal aligned. There is no North Star as such, which is linked to that fundraising. It's more about, you spend more, you'll raise more, right? Now the focus has shifted from, uh, blind or pointless growth to actually building a sustainable business, right? So I think that is the movement in that fortunately or unfortunately, that perspective or mindset shift is going to be beneficial for the entire ecosystem in a longer run.
Yeah. So I mean, have you guys seen any of those things presented by Ashneer Grover? I mean, if you leave out the Bharat Pay story aside,
Hmm.
what he talks is actually ground reality.
Yeah, that is true. He's very dhandawala, that he's
Ah,
very
so
specific about that.
yeah. I mean, he says that like all these startups who boast of crores of valuation based on peanuts of income, you could say, are not even comparable to what happens in streets.
Yeah,
He says
exactly.
that one guy comes onto the street, opens a shop, and goes home. And if you looked at his monthly revenue, that's in 20, 30 lakhs. So how are
Definitely
you
more
better
than
than that guy?
80% of the startups doing on a yearly basis.
So that is actually missing. What he talks about is fundamentally strong structure not being there in the startups,
Yeah.
and every I mean, you could say capital investment guy is looking to grab onto an opportunity, and there is no real way for us to validate the sustainability of the business or any of those things. So long as the business idea looks good, people started investing. And it's no longer a profitability game, right? It's more of a revenue game. You run onto a business that is generating big revenue, but you don't really worry about profitability plan at all. Once you become big enough, saturate the whole market, you start twisting the other key to make it more profitable. So that kind of a story is I mean, has happened a lot. Now that has taken a hit. If you looked at in recent times, last year and a half or so, the fund investment has reduced a lot.
You're right. No, it is, and I think that is going to get better since see everything is directly, indirectly linked to Fed rates, right? Fed interest rates, and if Biden he has to win the next term, then they'll be reducing the Fed interest rates, and there is a prediction that this is going to get better in last next few quarters. Election is due in August, right?
I actually think this is more of a divergence kind of a scenario. Everything in the market is dollar linked,
True, right? Yeah.
right? So if Fed interest rate is really having an impact on market, think about it. Last year and a half, 2 years, they kept on increasing the interest rate.
Hmm.
But have you seen real impact in the market? I mean, forget about the job market.
Not
That's
really.
a different
Not
story.
really.
So we are actually diverging from that.
Hmm.
And since they could not control so much on the dollar, they started playing the geopolitical game, right? I know. I mean, we are too small to judge on that, but you could clearly see that the timeline of the events. The
Correct.
first thing that happened was increase in the Fed rates, then
Ukraine
the
was
Ukraine,
Israel and
and then Israel. Now, very soon it will be Taiwan.
hmm. And
And what's
right,
the biggest thing that they can control on dollar? Oil, because that's a huge trade that happens in oil, and everything was happening in dollar. But now you have seen, right, lots of countries
There's
accepting
already
multiple currencies.
yeah, yeah.
So, I mean, it will have an impact. There is no doubt about it. But the severity of it will be much less compared to what it has been in the past.
Right. I think the the global leaders, they've already started thinking in that direction. Be it India, be it China. China has already been doing this for decades now, right? And I think
Yeah,
other
yeah.
countries have already started taking a step in that direction to reduce their dependency on dollars.
I mean, you could see all the, if you leave out US aside, the next big things are China, India, and Russia.
Right.
If these three countries adopt something beyond dollar, or these three countries are open to trading in any other currency, right? Like say
Exactly. And they've
India, I mean,
already
Russia
doing
is
those
a
bilateral trading, right, in local
yeah,
currencies.
yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah,
Russia is a slightly different scenario because of their current situation, but Russia started accepting INR. But even before Russia, Iran started accepting INR, if you remember.
right, right, yeah.
And so, I mean, Iran is not a big country for us to import so much from them. But if they
They do-
started accepting our INR, what will they do with it? But just opened up the opportunity for all the currencies. So these things are going to take a little bit of the pie from dollar. The impact will become much less in the
Mhm.
long runs. And if COVID taught us anything, depending on one country for whole supply chain is not good.
Yeah.
That is getting diversified, right? Like, so, I mean, simple example of Apple, they plan to shift 25% to India,
Hmm.
and they already have the Mac manufacturing completely happening in US,
Right.
right? So a lot of these things get distributed, so no single country can control the whole market,
Right. So
whether it is
that was
currency or
a
supply
reality
chains or
check.
manufacturing.
COVID was more of a reality check for all these economies as well as companies to see how they can diversify their business or the supply chain as well, upstream, downstream, both.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, so let's
That's the
talk.
pretty interesting thing that is happening. I think probably we are one of those crazy generations that are seeing all possible scenarios.
Yeah.
Recessions, job markets, technology, no technology.
So there has been a complete shift. So after, I think after industrial revolution, this is something that is going to have a long-lasting impact. The one was digital transformation, the dot-com bubble that happened in 99, 2000. Then the AI transformation or transition that is happening right now, which we are almost at the very, cusp of. We don't know what is next. So yeah, then space exploration. So a lot of things are happening in that direction.
So I think the very apt way to look at what's happening right now is what our Salesforce CEO says, Mark Benioff. He's very good at putting these things into perspective. He calls it a fifth industrial revolution.
Um,
Like the first one was whatever you call the very early stage of fire and stuff, and then the engines, oil engine, and all those things, and then it's all about the internet and this stuff. Now he calls it as the intelligence, you could say, AI per se, and data is the fuel for it.
yeah,
If oil
yeah,
was a fuel for engine and power, it's data is a fuel for our current AI revolution.
correct.
It's gonna change things a lot, but that doesn't mean that we are gonna be in any of those Skynets. That's not gonna happen. It will take quite a lot of time before we get into that. But it could happen. It's not like the machines will take over, but majority of the things could be done by the machines. It's quite possible. Have you guys ever tried reading Isaac Asimov?
No, I
You should
didn't.
probably yeah, you should probably read. I mean, lot of you must have seen iRobot movie, right?
Yeah, yeah.
That book is written by him. A
Oh,
precursor to that is the Foundation series. So most of our current AI are, if you say, autonomous designs, whether
I
it is
saw.
robot or vehicles, are built on those basic principles.
Mhm.
So he's almost called father of AI. Even Musk talks about it quite a lot of times. So a lot of things will change over the time. One simple example could be our Copilot, you could say. Um, right. I mean, if you needed to write one function, not very long ago when I started my job in Python, if I needed to write a simple code for identifying prime number, how much could I research? I could only see like 4 or 5 approaches. I could think of one approach and write, but now you could probably find 100 different approaches for one single
correct,
question.
correct, right.
And you only have access to those 100 approaches so long as you have the patience to read all of it. But if you ask a co-pilot to give you the best out of all possible ways, it'll give you in a snap of a time, right? So
Right,
that is gonna explode things much faster than what the online courses have done.
right. Yeah. And it's not going to kill jobs, I think it's going to make
It
us
would never kill. It is gonna be shift.
exactly. It's going to make us more efficient. And for example, what happened with Industrial Revolution? People thought, there were so many protests, there were so many, conspiracy theories that what it's going to put people out of their jobs, their livelihoods. But it actually ended up, making people more efficient and putting our energy and resources into something which,
Yes, you're right.
yeah, which is more, I would say, productive.
Yes, it's gonna shift. Say, for example, from manual labor to machine-based labor. Now it will become more intelligence-based, you could say.
Exactly.
But if you have seen in recent news, one of the very early guys to adopt this would be Accenture, I believe,
Mhm.
because they're gonna roll out the whole Copilot, or you could say GPT-based, some sort of a code assistant in the company. If Accenture, as big a consulting firm as it is adopting, we only need one more, like
Correct,
Infosys or
correct.
TCS or CTS. Then
Yeah,
done. That is going to be the turning point.
right. Plus,
Like,
it
so
also
we suddenly switch from writing things line by line, letter by letter, to suddenly writing function by function, or probably module by
right.
module.
Also, just take example of data, right? So I'm sure when you started back in 2010, if you have to write a regression, solve a regression problem or a classification problem, you have to build that entire algorithm from scratch. Now there are so many libraries. It's just a plug and play. You just need a data set, which you also get, from the internet. There are n number of data sets for every problem statement that is available out
Yes,
there,
yes, yes,
right?
yes,
There is an algorithm or there is a library. You can just plug and
yes.
play and
I mean, it is gone to a crazy level. I could give you one simple example just now, what you mentioned. If I
Mhm.
had to write a linear regression model, I used to sit and write cost function, optimization function, and all that. Now you not only have a model for doing all of this job, but you have a model that searches through hundred of the models or maybe thousands of the models and give you the best one, not
Yeah,
just linear regression anymore.
right.
It's
Absolutely.
only been 10 years.
Exactly.
It's
And,
only
and
been
that,
10
that
years. It's
actually like
exponential.
so getting into statistics or analytics a decade, before was it's unimaginable. Not an average person can get into data science or analytics or statistics. You need to be, very hardcore, what do you call a mathematician to get into that. But not anymore, right? Everyone can become a data
Yeah,
science,
yeah, yeah.
at
So
least
I'll
level.
give you one example of this adoption actually. When I was at Tiger Analytics, our founder Mahesh Kumar, he's the first founder of Tiger Analytics. He used to say, back in 2010, 80% of analytics is all sums and averages.
Yeah,
And you really look at it, it's actually true, right?
that is, that is
Back
absolutely
in 2010 to 13, 14, I would say, was a time of Mu Sigma, who were the leader of analytics at that time. And
true.
if you look back and see what kinds of things they have done, all sorts of dashboards and insights, right? The
Mhm.
moment you say dashboards and insights, it's all sums and averages. Doesn't matter what kind of aggregation you do, whether you do it at a product level, leader level, whatever it is,
That
right?
is actually true, right? So
Yeah.
yeah,
But from, I would say it was true up until certain point, but from 2015, 16 onwards, people started adopting the intelligence.
mm,
Now, I think it is still true that sums and averages plays major part of the analytics, but from 80, it probably is now 60.
right.
And in the remaining 40 or so, probably these most basic insight stuff like linear regression, classification, lots of these things everyone understands now.
Yeah, true.
There's a widespread adoption of these things in every small industry now. Back in 2010, if you go ask a store guy how much of data he has, he probably has only the 10 or 15 records that he recorded over the current day or last week.
Mhm.
Now, if you go ask the same store guy, he would say, I have the data for last 4 or 5 years because everyone started storing the data.
Yeah,
Now,
right.
everyone needs some
That,
sort of
they're
intelligence.
able to extract some intelligence or some
Yeah,
hidden information out of it,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
So, although not everyone is utilizing that data, but everyone has access to that kind of data.
yeah. So I'm saying earlier it was only those big guys who had the both data and people to do the stuff are doing, but now everyone is able to do it.
Yeah,
So you could say this is kind of a revolution of the things where intelligence gets adopted more and more.
right. And now with so many
And I
abstraction
could give you
layers,
one crudest example actually from my childhood days. I don't know, it's true for you or most of the people. To encourage the literacy, government used to run night schools. Have you guys seen that
yeah, I think they still do that.
in villages?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
But
obviously.
now,
Yeah.
now think about it. Do you really need to run those now? Everyone has a mobile.
Mm,
Whenever they are sitting idle under a tree, they just start looking at shorts.
that is true. But
They
again,
consume.
I think that is not too much, I would not say that's very impactful because again, education is a very strong function of intent and motivation,
Yes,
right? So
yes,
even
I
if you have
completely agree.
million of data or
So
million of videos available online, if you,
no,
you
no, no,
want
no. I agree partially on that aspect. I'll tell you why I don't agree partially.
it,
Intent and commitment gives you, say, 90% of the course you teach them. And say you teach them 100 things, they retain 90 things. But the time you spend on teaching those 100 things is limited. And when they are doing unintentionally, assume that they consume only 5%.
Mhm.
But the time they spend suddenly is like thousandfold, right?
Okay.
So I'm saying the absorption has gone down from 90 to probably 5 or even 2%. I'm not putting a number there. You could say even 1%. I don't mind, but it cumulates.
Yeah.
I mean, take our PF interest of 8%, and 12 years it becomes double, right?
Right. But again, the problem is, like this information is also very half-baked. So you have
That's
a
the
lot of,
danger of it. That's
yeah,
the danger of it.
right. So you have a lot of people who knows about everything, but nobody knows about anything, in a way that can
The
actually be
rationale
useful.
behind me giving that example is you no longer care about teaching them the syllables or reading. It's
Yeah.
more about teaching them what's right versus wrong. That's a step ahead in the direction of literacy, right? The same
Mhm.
goes true for every stage, from sums and averages to linear regression to neural networks, probably. And tomorrow, who knows? Anything beyond that.
Mhm. Right. So let's see
Drawing synonyms
how
is a
that goes.
little tricky there. Yeah.
But if you look at it, see, there are so many edtech that has sprouted in the last 5, 6 years, right? But now everyone is having success only with one model. That is the offline. Everyone is opening up their coaching centers, be it Udemy, Upgrad, be it Byju's, everyone, right? Everyone is going back to the traditional approaches of setting up a coaching center, and that's where they have actually been able to make money and being profitable. Their online businesses is still not doing anything. So I think that says a lot about what kind of the overall mindset, people's mindset, like how they are looking at it.
I actually
See,
agree to it halfway through.
so see, from my perspective, what I understand is, what you are saying is absolutely correct for people with intent and commitment. But for people without intent and commitment, you also need to teach those people, right? Because see, people with intent and commitment, they are anyway going to learn no matter what. They are going to figure out way to learn and grow. But
Yes.
that is just probably 1% of the entire population. What about the other 99%? You have to motivate and inspire them to do something.
I'll give you one more example. Say, when the child is born, right? So this is actually the rationale for the neural networks, if you think about it.
Mhm.
So what intent does he have to learn to speak? Can you put a perspective on that?
Curiosity could be one.
Yeah, then
Yeah,
is there any intent there? It is just a curiosity to learn new things. So when somebody is watching a video,
yeah.
a meme, for example, you look at it number of times, you easily figure out what is happening. So repetition does the job.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how the kids learn. They do the same thing several times. They fail, fail, fail. They incrementally become better. Right? That's the basis for neural networks if you actually sit and write the equation.
No. Right. Absolutely correct.
I don't want to get into the details of why education systems are failing versus traditional coaching centers are working, but that is only in India. What happened to Coursera? They're still working, right?
Right, but it's still working for those people who want to do something.
Yeah. So it's just putting it in the right market.
What's the completion rate of Coursera or any of these online edtech, or even if you look at Khan Academy, what's the actual completion rate of, course completion rate for these guys?
Fine. It's probably, I mean, when it was new, it's probably, I don't know, 20%. Maybe it is 1-2%.
Yeah, that it's in single digit. It's 5-6%. That's the course completion rate. So everyone enrolls for a course, but nobody actually completes it.
Because there
Not
is no compulsion. There is no compulsion.
Yeah,
It is nothing to do with the intention, right? Think about it. Think about a researcher for that matter. He has no resource available for him. He would still sit and search for every single source out there, and he'll figure out the problem at his hand, and he'll write the paper on it, right?
yeah, right. Absolutely right.
So, I mean, when you are enrolling in a course and you dedicate yourself for like that course in a classroom for 1 hour, you actually spend 1 hour more to drive, attend the class, and come back. Whereas the access to online content is like on demand, and it
Mm.
is not giving people enough. But if you are in a researcher mode, you don't even need an online course, right?
Right, so that's what, if you are in the top 1%, you literally don't need anything.
That's
You will
that's
figure out
that's
something,
just putting in the right market, right place.
Yeah,
So Coursera is not the optimal case for the entire market, but those who are completing
yes,
1%, it is the
exactly.
right place for them.
Right, we are probably talking about the same thing. Exactly. For
Same thing in
people
a
who
different
are
perspective.
looking, yeah, right. Makes sense. Makes sense. So, how do you think, Satish, the overall data ecosystem and how the kind of engineers you were able to hire back then in 2012, 13 versus right now, how the overall mindset shift has happened in the new engineers, in the
Oh, a
freshers?
lot has happened. Back when we were hiring for the first time in 2000, I would say 13, 12, 13, because I wouldn't call a time before that my time because it's probably my seniors.
Mm.
12, 13, we only used to look at people's analytical ability more on the, what do we call, quant questions, more on the puzzle side of things and their intent to learn new things. Those are the kinds of interviews we used to do. Because obviously, I mean, I've seen yesterday one post in LinkedIn saying that they need to hire somebody with the experience of 3 years on GPT. Damn it, GPT became popular in last January, right?
That's
So
funny.
that kind of scenario is no longer an option at that time because people were not aware of these things. Those who are posting the requirement itself were not aware of these things. So we used to look at the people's analytics ability and puzzle solving skills, take them, train them, and then once they understand it, they get adopted very easily. But now every college kid comes out with a course on his resume.
Yeah.
I mean, they perfectly know lots of these things. It's not like they just put the course on it. Now it's actually really difficult for us to actually hire a guy.
Mm-hmm.
Not because they don't have a skill anymore. They have skill. Now we need to filter out within those skill, right?
Right.
It becomes very tricky. But the most important factor now, compared to those days, is the retention,
Yeah, no,
right? So
that is a huge burning problem, for the entire ecosystem.
So now people concentrate more on people who are passionate about the right kind of industry and problems that you're working on rather than looking at the exact skill of the person.
Mm-hmm.
Nowadays, skill is like teachable. You point him to one course that is relevant to your problem statement, he can go learn, do it. If you don't have that much of a trust on a person, there is no point in hiring the person in the first place.
Correct,
So
correct.
it's actually really, really tricky now to figure out the person's ability to stay back long enough. Because think about it, if a company is hiring a person, they are not investing just in salary, but many more things. So if your salary is X, the actual cost to company is actually 2 or 2.5x.
No, absolutely correct. True.
So the actual return on investment for the company would be beyond a year.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Because first 6 months, no matter the level of your skill, you need to understand my business process and then solve my problem.
Yeah, yeah.
That is still upfront cost for the company. Beyond 6 months is when you start doing things with very little help from the management or somebody who is giving you the problem statements. When I
Mm-hmm.
say problem statement, don't take it like exact data science, but it could be engineering problem also. It could be content creation problem also. It could be anything for that matter, requirement.
Right.
So, and you start doing that from 6 months onwards. Now, I'm being too optimistic in saying that in 6 months you would actually recover the 1.5x, but that's what the reality is. If you're in a right business, you would need
Mm-hmm.
at least a year for the candidate to even break even for the company's expense.
Correct, correct.
Now, if the candidate is not going to stay with me for 3 years, then what am I spending on?
That's the reality. Most of the candidates, the typical, I would say, time frame for which, and talking about an engineer or developer primarily, that is spent in a company is roughly around 1.5 to 2 years. That's the standard. Even if you look at, top product companies, even Google came up with a statement, something, that their average tenure of an engineer they have is around 1.5 years.
So I'll give you the counterintuitive idea of why people shift. I've gone through, so I know it. Trust me when I say this thing. So people switch mainly because they want to earn more.
Yeah.
City or company is not exactly a big deal. But this is probably my personal suggestion to everyone is like, don't run behind money. Run behind the passion and the, if at all you want to put it, designation, then money will run behind you.
It's a short term stuff that people look at, that right now I'm getting this,
So I've
maximize
been
this.
in this industry for like 12 years, right? My average growth year over year from where I started is probably 40%, you could say. Every 2.5 years, I doubled my salary.
Mm-hmm.
2.5 years on an average.
Right.
So, I mean, if you switch a company, you can't double in 2 years, right?
Correct.
What's the best you get? 12%, 12% average rise for the time you stay there. And every time you shift a company, assuming you get the very nice offer or opportunity, it's probably about 50 to 60% over your current pay.
Correct. 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 No,
50 to 60% and 12%, 12%, you average out over 2 years, it's probably less than 50%. It's not doubling, right? Like, so
for the
stay long enough,
last
convince the
4 5 years,
stakeholders.
it is every time someone switches, they ask for at least a 50% raise. Getting it or not is a different question, but mostly people are getting 30 to 50%. That is something that I've also observed for the last 4 5 years. Yes, they do
Yes,
get
yes.
that kind of, yeah.
Yeah. So, but I would say you could actually get that if you have patience to wait for a little longer.
Yes, that is what.
You, you convince your stakeholder that you are much more valuable than leaving you, then he'll probably give you more than 50% that you are willing to leave.
Correct. No,
It happened to me.
that
It
is.
happened to me more than 2 or 3 times.
Mhm.
So you would get it. You just need to have enough patience to get there.
Right. Do you also think, with all these certifications and courses coming in, I've also seen a lot of people, they have the skill, but they don't have the depth. Most of the knowledge is very superficial with these certifications and stuff. The depth is typically lacking. This has been my observation. What are your thoughts? What has been your observation on this? Do this really?
Expecting depth, expecting depth is only possible when the person coming to you is having an experience.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you could read 100 books or 1,000 books. It's all theoretical, right? So when you do a course, assume there is a linear model itself. I'm talking too much into linear models, but it could be any model. The data you get is actually very clean data, a peeled banana for you. But in industry, what they tell you is that, hey, here is a banana farm, go get your own banana.
Correct. Right. Right.
Now you don't even know whether the tree is ready for having that banana starting to grow and then identifying the right ripe one to peel it and eat it, right?
Has a
So
banana.
what I'm saying is that you need to explore yourself to find the right kind of a data, to clean it up to fit your model and do it. That comes only through experience, or at least work on enough problems going through the entire process. I'm saying experience, it doesn't mean years of experience, experience working on the problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now courses teach you a lot of theoretical skill, but the application takes time.
Correct.
So that's what is lacking. And I mean, you can't expect everyone to have that 3 years of GPT without GPT being there, right? So if he has a job for 3 years, he probably has that experience. And
Yeah.
if he has a job and he knows theoretical and he still didn't do, probably he didn't get the right opportunity or he was not willing to put enough effort into it. So that's the way to filter out the people.
Right. Well, that's nice. I think we are almost, the time is about to end. So before we end this, Satish, I would like to, a lot of people would want to know how to get into a data role in companies like Salesforce and, similar companies like Salesforce or Salesforce. So what are your 2 cents on this for these guys?
Um, how do I put it? Oftentimes, you should have passion to solve the problem, is what I would say. Any of these big companies are not hiring simply based on a 45-minute interview anymore. Lots of the companies are giving you uh, a case study. The first thing people do is just pose that question back to GPT, kind of a parallel tool, get the answer, put it out there. Don't do it. Don't do it. It's okay if you only solve half the problem, but
Yeah.
don't do it because we can easily catch you. Think about it. Like you can go and try it again. You ask GPT to generate a paragraph. Take that paragraph and ask it again. Did you generate it? It will say yes.
Yes. Right. No, that is true.
So patterns can easily be identifiable. So the reason I'm saying this example is because you go ask a GPT, it will give you 10 steps. You follow that exact 10 steps. And in the interview, people ask the 11th step
Yeah.
and you fumble. You fumble. It's okay if you go tell the interviewer that I haven't tried this, I don't know. But you fumble. That puts you in a tricky spot. But if
Correct.
you really tried and you only did those 10 steps and interviewer asks 11th step, you would at least give you a perspective in the 11th step. You don't just simply fumble.
Mhm.
Like one simple example could be like I give you data, I ask you to fit a linear model. You go just simply take X variables, put f of X, you get your answer. Now, if I come back and ask you about why didn't you do the data cleanup? What's the distribution of the data that you observed? Or what did you do with your outliers? How did you do with your missing values? Or what kind of metric did you choose while optimizing your model? Why do you pick that one particular cost function, not the other one? Why one that particular optimization function? Those you would not have an answer to because you haven't really researched and understood those.
Yeah. Right.
Instead, you only did say missing values filling and came and fit a model. That's still fine. If I come and ask you about what happened to outliers, you would say, I had only this much time to do these things. I've done this thing, and yes, we could do that one.
Right.
So don't just pick the stuff out of the open basket, but rather try it yourself.
Build it yourself.
Yeah.
That's the recipe to, get into Salesforce or anywhere else.
Any company for that matter. So when people look for the solution that you provided, they also ask questions, right? So you should be ready to answer those. And one of the very, very important things I myself consider lacking a lot is presentation skill.
Mm-hmm.
And it is really, really important actually. No
Very
matter the
actually.
kind of work you do, if you are not able to present it well, people actually don't care.
Right. If you're not able to communicate what you are thinking, then everything else is pointless actually.
I can actually explain my real life experience. In my BTech fourth year, I've done my BTech project. Now it's not a very a crazy thing in BTech to do a BTech project, but we used to do the BTech project with very seriously because there's a 12 credits involved in it. And you present your thesis. My project was actually very interesting one in civil engineering itself, although I didn't have so much interest in civil engineering. And my professor was really impressed with it. If he was grading me, I probably would have gotten an S grade, which is highest grade possible for the
Okay.
thesis. But what happened was that he was not able to attend my thesis scrutiny. One external was there. We presented it. Said, all is well, what do I do with this thesis? Because I was not good at writing in those
Yeah,
days.
yeah.
And then I ended up getting A, right? And the very next year, the same exact project got split into 3 BTech projects and 3 papers were published.
Nice.
So it was very interesting work. I've done a very good job. I wouldn't say I solved the whole problem, but in BTech, doing a very good job and setting the stage for 3 papers beyond that.
Right.
But I still could not get my S grade. Forget about publishing a paper. Then I failed at presenting it well.
Yeah.
It really matters a lot.
No, that is true. That is true. Sounds good. I think with this, we'll wrap this session, guys. And thank you once again, Sateesh, for taking time on a Sunday morning. I know it must.
I should probably say thank you because this is the first time I've ever done. I don't know how the feedback would be, but I would love to hear even if it is bad because there's always something to learn.
I enjoyed. I'm sure everyone else enjoyed it. It was a really nice, it was a very nice interaction. Learned a lot about your thought process, perspective, journey, everything. So loved it.
Thank you. Wish you all the best. Have a little passion towards what you do.
Thank you so much, Satish.